Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. We have a 4-deck day for you. Lambie's got a deck, W has 2 new decks, and we were gifted from one of our friends the #1 deck in Marvel Snap, which, yes, you see it on the screen, features Domino. But before we get started, I want to invite you, if you'd like some gameplay for these decks, to check out the Stream Team. This is the week where in each stream, we're giving away a season pass, so make sure you check out what you can. At 12 p.m. Eastern, that's today, as of release, Gregor will be streaming the decks from this video. So if you want the decks from this video, check it out. Gregor will be streaming 4 hours after this goes live for something like 3 or 4 hours. Same time tomorrow for our friend Prashan as well for the new card for all the new Sage decks. So if you're interested in those, check them out. There's a season pass in every video this week. All right, our first deck is the Lambie version of Ultron we featured last week. The Miley version, which reached #1. Lambie hasn't really been grinding Infinite Ladder. He plays well and climbs well, but he hasn't been grinding Infinite Ladder. This deck has like a 60% win rate. It is much more all in terms of just like getting the Ultron going and getting huge stats from it. This is built to not have other things go over the top of you, not to steal cubes necessarily. So this is just a big points deck. It's still a relatively cheap deck with only one Series 4 and one Series 5 in it, unlike the last one, which was all Series 4. You can find Lambie at twitch.tv/LambieSeriesTV. For anyone who's brand new here, Lambie is the best player in the history of Marvel Snap. I don't think he's necessarily the best currently, as he's been distracted and playing other things, but I think if you're talking all-time historically, he is the GOAT. There is a Series 3 only version in Friday's video, just as a reminder. If you don't have Iron Lad, you can try running Super Skrull here, and if you don't have Ravonna, you can run Invisible Woman. Those would be the changes I'd make. I think Ravonna is actually more important than Lad in this particular version. All right, so this has a 62% win rate in 700 games on Marvel Snap Zone. Turn 1, you pass because you're not running 1-drops. Turn 2 is Ravonna. Turn 3, Patriot, is perfectly fine if you didn't Ravonna. Wave is if you have Onslaught, you can also drop Crystal to try and get your cards going. If you dropped Patriot on turn 4, feel free to drop Mystique. Or you can do the Wave into Onslaught right then and there. And if you had Ravonna out, you can also get an Iron Man. If you played Iron Man or Patriot on 4, you can copy that with, guessed it, Mystique. You could also just play Iron Man Blue Marvel. Or if you had Ravonna out, you can on turn 4 or 5 drop both Mystique and Patriot. If you're sure your opponent doesn't have ongoing, you can put that ongoing hate, you can put that in one lane. But be careful, because a single Enchantress, if you have them both in one lane, is absolutely backbreaking. On turn 6, you can play Onslaught or Ultron. Onslaught and Wasp or Ultron and Wasp. I tend to be aiming for Ultron with this deck because, a 624 is an awful lot of power. One last look at this deck. This is incredibly powerful. Happy to see Lambie falling in love with the game a little bit again and building this really cool, really powerful deck. I've been playing with both this and the Miley version, and while I do like the Miley version a little better at sealing cubes, I feel like this one wins a few more games. So take that as you will. People often people often run from this when it's going to do its thing, and so you're like less likely to get hit for those cubes. Also, tech is harder on this version, whereas the Miley will lose some games on points, right? But when it wins, it's winning those big cube games more often. So that's where I land on these two decks. Hey, want to do me a favor? Hit that sub button, hit that like, hit that comment. We bring you at least 3 brand new decks every single weekday. If you check yesterday's video, we covered 20-ish decks. We did every deck from the top 5 players of last season, and then I went through and found 2 different decks for each archetype I think is taking off in this new season, and had 2 sleeper decks. We bring you more decks, more high quality content, 7 days a week of brand new videos here on the channel. Sub, and if you're already subbed, like, comment, watch as long as you can. It really helps us and helps the channel grow. Thanks. All right, last chance review for Nocturne. We like to review the cards right before they leave the shop, and tomorrow Nocturne will be out of the shop. And I was convinced I was going to say don't get Nocturne, and this is a very soft recommend, but it is a soft recommend for Nocturne. I think outside of Mill, Nocturne is probably the best 3 in the game. Like, outside of specific stuff you need, right? Like, it's not a tech card like Mobius, and it doesn't go directly into Mill like Gladiator. But Gladiator was like your go-to if you had space for an extra 3, you just shoved it in every deck. I think most decks, that's going to be Nocturne now, because Nocturne does an awful lot of powerful things in terms of getting rid of dangerous locations. And yes, she will lose you the occasional game. She actually earlier today lost me an infinity ticket when on the last turn she turned a location I would have won that would have won me 4 cubes and put me way ahead into the location that turns the first card the opponent plays there into a 6 drop. Their card turned into Orca, which put them over the top of my Nocturne move. What are you gonna do? That kind of thing happens. I've played enough Scarlet Witch to know that that's variance and not let it get to me. But I think Nocturne is the best in slot general good stuff 3 for the time being. Um, while the best tech 3 is probably Red Guardian and or Mobius. So I think that Nocturne is a soft recommend. She is always going to be replaceable. You're never I don't think there are going to be many, if any, decks that I just go, well, you can't replace Nocturne, you can't play without her. But if you're looking for just good stuff decks and you want to play those good stuff decks, it helps to have some of the good stuff cards, and Nocturne is one of those. So again, this is a very soft recommend for this very good card. All right, the number one deck in Marvel Snap as of this morning was Sizer. Sizer played this, I don't know what to call it except for Blink Good Stuff. We've been seeing and covering a lot of this style of Blink Good Stuff. This version is really cool in that it says, screw the early game, let's go Domino. Cool. It runs basically the 2 best tech 3s, then the best good stuff 4, then the best good stuff 3, then the 4 that you need to answer the bullshit, then 2 other 4s that are basically blink fodder, right? That's honestly what they're there for. Claw, which is the most stats on a 5, Vision, which is a great 5, then like Doom is the best good stuff 6, or Red Hulk is. And that's like what this list is. It's literally just like the best card in slot at every slot except 4, where instead of going best in slot, it's saying best for blink and best to counter you. Brilliant deck, super cool. Props to Sizer for this incredibly powerful thing. Though I don't love it with the Elysium hot location, fair warning. All right, so Sizer's a top player and a friend. Hey, Sizer, thanks for watching, bud. Sizer was the number 1 player in the December season, technically finishing ahead of Zuns, even if the Infinite Leaderboard is forever bugged and difficult about such things. And was in the top 10, I believe, number 7 last season, is often one of the best players when he wants to be in the world, plays amazing decks at a super high level. He's been messing around with the Enchantress, with Shang-Chi and Iron Lad also in that spot, so if you'd like to mess around, that's one spot to play with. Mobius, Nocturne, Red Guardian could be Killmonger, Rogue, Gladiator, Polaris Storm. I actually really do like the Killmonger here, perhaps over Mobius, depending on what the meta is, because, well, Killmonger when opponents are playing a lot of ones, and I'm seeing a lot of ones in this meta when you're not playing any ones and you're playing Domino, is very strong. Turn 4, Red Hulk can be Magneto, fundamentally always. You might also want to try Magneto over Doctor Doom, or even in that Enchantress slot. Blink is the only high series card here that is actually required. You do need Blink. So again, this has been a dominant list. FAK Crazy and others have started playing it because it is so freaking good. I've seen more Domino lists today after this one took off than I have in ages. So turn 1 pass because no one. Turn 2 Domino. Turn 3 Nocturne if there's nothing specific. If you're seeing a location that calls for it, Mobius, or your opponent's playing a deck that calls for it, drop Mobius. And Red Guardian is if there's like an Angela out or a Patriot out that you know you can get rid of. Turn 4, Jubilee or Reach. Leech, do yourself a favor and don't play these cards right. I learned that the hard way earlier, playing an Ika version of this, where I played my Leech right, and then when I blinked it, I got my Claw right and felt like a moron. It was like, oh, I could have 12 power, instead I have 4. Good job, me. Turn 5 is meant to be Blink, almost always. If you have Blink on 5, you play Blink. That is better than Vision, which is more or less equal to Claw. It depends what the board looks like. And then turn 6, Red Hulk or Doctor Doom. Again, reading the board, letting that determine for you. This deck is a thing of beauty. This is, again, almost all of the best in slot cards. I think the only real best in slot arguments here that aren't here are Killmonger and Cannonball. Cannonball over Vision and Killmonger over one of the 3 drops. This is an absolutely sick deck. It works really well. As soon as that location's gone, I strongly urge you to check it out. This is a climber for sure. All right, first week review for Blink. Blink isn't gone. I think Blink's one of the 5 best cards in Marvel Snap, straight up, period. I think Blink is a better card than Hope Summers. I think Blink is a better card right now than Ms. Marvel. She's about as good as Ms. Marvel was originally. Blink is stellar. She has completely changed Marvel Snap and how we think about stats on turn 4. She's almost certainly going to lose a point or two of power, but I cannot urge you any more strongly to buy this card. This is a card that is 100% worth owning. She goes in 1,000 different shells. I saw her in Loki shells. I've seen her in stuff shells, in Hela shells, in Apocalypse discard shells. She goes in an absolute ton of decks, and in all of them, she's an extremely, extremely high level card. I think she has, again, fundamentally changed how we play Marvel Snap for as long as she's in the game. And you should get her because otherwise you're going to be asking to replace her and be very sad because there is no card that does what Blink does. Blink is a one of one that you need to have. Cool. Get Blink. All right. Next up, we have the first of our 2 W decks. I wanted to show you the expensive one. The next one is much cheaper and does not have Nocturne or Blink, I promise. This is another sort of the good stuff shell, right? Like, this is very similar to that last deck. This is just W's version. It does not run Domino, so it's spending a lot of time on the early game building up power. It's got Nebula, Nightcrawler, Medusa, and Jeff as its early game, right? Which is just a decent amount of power. And then instead of running Tekken at its 3 spots, it's running good the 2 best good stuff 3 drops in Nocturne and Gladiator. Then we've got Shuri and Blink, which is 14 power. 14 power is often game winning, especially when followed by something like a leader. And especially if that Shuri becomes Sandman, right? Doom can also occasionally win from that point as well. You're also perfectly happy to Shuri that Gladiator, which is the other reason that Gladiator goes in this list. All right, so you can find W at twitter.com/WMarvelSnap, and we're going to explain a little bit more about who W is in a little bit because I think it's worth knowing why we care every time W creates a deck. Nebula plus Jeff can be Armor, Iceman, or Spider-Ham just fine. There is no Professor X, so you're often okay without that with Jeff being sort of whatever. I also kind of like Armor here because you do have that Shuri Blink play, and you don't really want to leave that 14 open for Sean. Nocturne and Gladiator can be Red Guardian, Mobius, Rogue, Cosmo, just fine. I think Gladiator is actually really important here, Nocturne less so. Gladiator is your backup plan for what you Shuri. Finally, you need some good old Blink. Blink is, again, completely replaceable. All right, so W is the best deck builder in the history of the game. I think that's worth knowing. He has completely warped the meta, I believe, on either 3 or 4 different occasions. The control Thanos shells that were running Professor X were ultimately his. He brought those back into the meta. He created 2 different meta versions of Doomwave for different versions of Wave. When he's the first person who, in like literally it was in client, put Wave and She-Hulk in a good stuff shell where you could play Wave on 5 and then go She-Hulk and Doom on 6. So he created that, and then when Wave became the 3/3 where nothing could be reduced, at the end, and you'd play it on turn 5 and just do one thing, he came up with the Doom Wave that was playable at that point too. And then eventually, when Ms. Marvel came out, there was that W Guardians list, which was like it ran like Nebula and one other card, I don't even remember what it was, Gamora maybe, as the only Guardians, but what it did was basically play like Alioth Lockdown with Guardian stuff, and he basically invented that deck. So he has broken the meta at 4 different occasions. Considering how rarely W does Marvel Snap content anymore, that's an insanely good rate. Whenever he builds a deck, you can expect to find it here. So turn 1, Nebula over Nightcrawler. Turn 2, Medusa over Jeff. Turn 3, Gladiator over Nocturne, unless you might want to Shuri that Gladiator. Turn 4, Leech or Shuri. Turn 5, you Blink that Leech or Shuri. If you don't have Blink, you play Sandman. And turn 7, Leader or Doom. After a Leech, Sandman Doom is really, really strong. Just fair warning. There's a lot of power to this deck. This deck is really cool, really powerful, really straightforward. W's showing off those curves. Props, Dub. Questions of the day. I like this one. All right. Desmond asked about Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals is the new, like, it's basically Overwatch with Marvel characters. I watched some friends play it over the weekend. it's not going to be for me. I don't like that kind of shooter. It's pretty, and if it's for you, a ton of my friends are playing it. If you want to know who and who you can watch play it, please leave a comment, and I'll list you some people that you can go watch, depending on what time you're on. Um, it seems cool, and I'm happy people like it. Desmond is awesome, by the way. All right, it's just three wants to know my favorite bad card, and I couldn't pick one. So, like, most of my bad cards have been nerfed, right? Like, Quake, when she was bad, was one of my favorite cards, but was nerfed. Um, Squirrel Girl, I don't think counts as bad, but Squirrel Girl was terrible for a while, and I've got a gold Squirrel Girl because I love me some Squirrel Girl. I love Zoo. I think Squirrel Girl has long been kind of overrated in decks that want to get underrated in decks that want to get priority. Plus, the Squirrel Girl comic run is one of my favorite comic runs ever. Unbeatable Squirrel Girl is funny, charming, smart, and entertaining. Like, I cannot recommend it more. So Squirrel Girl is like combo of one of my favorite characters slash favorite cards. My other favorite card is like that I actually play all the time is Werewolf by Night. I literally constantly try and jam Werewolf into decks where he doesn't belong. Then I have to go back and like take him out. Werewolf by Night, a card that bounces around and makes every card I play like a do something card and move, is really fun because that's what I want to happen in Marvel Snap games. I want things moving. I want dynamism, and Werewolf by Night does that. I think Werewolf can go back to being a 3/3, will still be a great card, but because of all the clog, no longer a busted card, so I'm holding out hope. But for now, Werewolf is bad, and I love it anyway. But my single favorite bad card in the game is Ghost, because when Ghost first came out, like February of last year, um, we all thought Ghost was great. In particular, I was playing a lot of Sarah, trying to make Infinite for the first couple seasons of the year with Sarah decks, and I was like, Ghost is exactly what I want. And I loved Ghost so much. And Ghost was terrible. Ghost was terrible forever. Ghost was terrible, and then I eventually hit Infinite with Ghost, and everyone told me I shouldn't play it in the deck I did, and it worked really, really well. Um, it was that Darkhawk stature Black Bolt list that was around forever, and you were playing a million mirrors if you played that list at the time, and everyone was playing Nebula. I threw Ghost in there so that I can make sure my Shangan Enchantress won me the match, and it worked beautifully. And that since then, like Ghost eventually became a 3/5, and I think it's like an okay card, but there's still enough times that you really, really, really don't want to lose priority. But as a 3/5, the stats are just good enough. Like, I don't know. I love Ghost. I got nothing but love for this card. Hey, Crankin the Blob asked the max decks I'd recommend for climbing. So this is a do as you say, not as you do thing. What I tend to do is I have 18 to 20 decks built, and I pick either the far left or the far right, and I play down the line. If I'm winning with a deck or like location screw me, I'll play like two or three with one deck. That is a terrible way to climb. That is how I usually drop a bunch of ranks when I'm infinite. When I really enjoy a deck and just play one, I chill around like the 1 to 3,000 range, and then when I do that, I tend to chill around the 10,000 range. So I generally suggest that in play sessions, I consider a play session, generally speaking, about a half hour to 2 hours. So in play sessions, I suggest 1 to 2 decks. You're welcome to switch decks, but I suggest you stick to 1 to 2 decks. If what you really want to do is climb, that's what most top tier players do. Here, Tixley asked my favorite banned book. And it's The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. I think the book is brilliant. I taught it. It's the only book I've ever had banned out from under me as I was teaching it. It's a very long story how that happened, but it is one of my favorite books. I think what it says about colonialism is ridiculously interesting, and how negative it is about toxic masculinity is ridiculously interesting. All the comic and geekery stuff is really entertaining. The characters are brilliant. I absolutely love the book. And I went to teach it 2019, let's say, 18 or 19, and it got banned right before I was going to teach it, and it broke my heart a little bit. So it is without a doubt my favorite banned or challenged book. It is wonderful. A lot of violence, including sexual violence. I'm not saying I don't understand why it was banned, but it was a college level course for seniors, so I really wish it wasn't, because there were all sorts of like discussions about consent and trigger warnings and so on before we started. But it happened either way. Administration complained, not parents complained. Believe it or not, I've never had a parent complain about me in any real sense. So, yeah. But The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, if you've never read it, you should. Hey, I'm short questions, so please leave some in the comments to this video. It'd really help me out. All right, our last deck of the day. Yeah, 4 decks, W Scam. See, I told you this one was cheaper. It's not like cheap, but it's significantly cheaper. This is so a thing I thought Cannonball can do when he first came out was you could do the Professor X thing or you can do an Iron Man thing, because if you can Cannonball into an Iron Man lane, you're usually so freaking tall in that Iron Man lane that it doesn't really matter that you put their biggest thing there, because Iron Man doubled all your stuff. So you've got like for example, the Ms. Marvel buff, right? With Iron Man and Gladiator there. That is 1326 power there. So you put their card there, and it doesn't matter that like they have a lot of power there, because you're basically going over the top. And God, if you have just like a Nebula or Daredevil in that lane, you just win very easily. Cool. So that was always my logic, and W put it together in the least surprising move ever, because W is awesome. Other synergy in this deck that I really like is I really like Nebula and White Widow. Nebula and White Widow together basically say fill both lanes. You have to find a way to play into both spots, and that's often challenging for decks. And we have Ravonna, so we can do Titania Professor X or Titania Hobgoblin stuff to ruin opponents. With Daredevil, you can end up going Hobgoblin, Titania, and basically take over a lane and win the damn game. All right, you can find W at the same place you could 5 minutes ago. Nebula, White Widow can be Nightcrawler and Green Goblin. Kind of fine, but you really like the location control that Nebula and Widow give you, but it's changeable. I think Green Goblin would be very good in this list. Gladiator could be Polaris, Nocturne, or Red Guardian. I like Gladiator best because Iron Man is here in particular, but it is not a requirement. You do need Jeff, largely because that Professor X is there and because Ms. Marvel is there. And Ravonna is needed because you have Professor X, Iron Man, and Hobgoblin. And Cannonball is needed because it's built to use Cannonball with those cards. Ms. Marvel can be Omega Red. It's not as good. Always, but like there's ways it's as good or better, right? Like it works a little bit better with that Iron Man play line I discussed a couple seconds ago. All right, so this deck has been dominant. If you check W's retweets and comments, everyone's kicking all sorts of ass with this deck. Turn 1 Nebula, turn 2 obviously you do not play Titania on turn 1. Turn 2, Ravonna is better than Daredevil, is better than Widow, is better than Jeff. If I have Nebula out, I think Widow goes up potentially, but usually that's the right order. Turn 3, Ravonna is better than Gladiator, is better than the other two. Turn 4, if you can Professor X or Hobgoblin, that's fine. You could also feel free to drop Iron Man or Ms. Marvel. Turn 5, Titania and either Professor X or Hobgoblin. And then turn 6 is Cannonball, or if you need to, Iron Man plus A2. And that's how you win with this deck. This is a lot of power and a lot of disruption. Doesn't seem like it's as disruptive as it is when you play it. This is straight up scam and really hard to beat. Props to W. I actually like this deck better than the last one. I just think it's so strong. Also, it does not super give a crap about getting leeched. Like Gladiator likes getting leeched, right? Cannonball hates it, but Gladiator likes it. And besides that, you're losing what, White Widow? Okay, that's fine. All right. If you are interested in supporting us some more, check out patreon.com/snapjudgments. The $10 tier gets your name said in every video, so thank you to Abigail Gieslin, Mandatory Burnout, my bud, Gables, we miss you, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, hope you're doing well, LAB, miss your sweet comments, Thor Newman, check him out on YouTube, he's part of the stream team, Good Dog Gamer, posting badass decks left and right, This is the Way, all the way from Scotland, Ink, Jane Everett, how's your climb going, JD McDonaldino, who should probably get on Twitch more than once every 4 months. Koirei, all the way from Japan. Pyrophoros, who has amazing minis. The Goat Seeker, who won one of the pods in the last Snap Judgments League. Deadman Falcon, check him out on YouTube. Doku. Philip Ratkovich, our own Ratco, phenomenal player, one of our mods. Haplo. Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone. Rob Silverman, longtime supporter. The Bizza, X-Force V, Skippy G, Tommy Nyquist, Snap Judgments Season 1 champion, the King of Bros, hey bro, Black Dahlia, the Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Ryan Wood, Kev Cihoda, who's already hit 90. He's hitting infinite this season, y'all. Lunacris, my former student, Lou Antunes, Mod Supreme Models, Rema Satala, Rema, excuse me, Rema. Let me know how I'm saying it if I'm getting there. Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrum Mix, Woot, Matt H., DJ Mikey Hijinks, No Flex, Ocularis, Craig Starry, killing with the comments lately. Thank you, Craig. Pretty freaking chill. Hey, Seamus. Spike Jones, Jonesy on YouTube. Two Ties, who has made the deck I hit Infinite with. Check yesterday's video for more. The Pirate King Tucker, Fridays, member of the stream team. The homie Min, who's doing better, I think, hope. Miss you, Min. And of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for. This video went longer than I thought. Thanks for watching. You know the drill at this point. Hit that sub, hit that like, hit that comment. If you want to do more, check out the Patreon. We'll see you tomorrow with a bajillion Sage decks and so much more. Peace.